Okay, this is Dr. Yang speaking, and we are about ready to do an interview entitled Unconnected Dots, the success of the Obama campaign and how Obama connected the dots. And this is Dr. Suleiman Yang. We're here at his office in Howard University. And Dr. Yang, just take it however you like.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to really have you here, Dr. Wheeler, to address a very important issue which has implication for the post-Obama generations of Americans and human beings around the planet. Because President Obama's accession to the position of President of the United States is unprecedented. Without going into detail, let me just briefly say most of the scholars who are experts in the presidency will tell you George Washington was number one, and then you have many other intermediary presidents, and there are major figures you can identify. Lincoln, of course, comes to mind because of the Civil War and the preservation of the Union, and then you can go to Grant, and you can move on and come to Teddy Roosevelt, and then you have the two Roosevelts, FDR, and then for those who are very sentimental about the Kennedy phenomena, you can come to John Kennedy and LBJ from Texas, which also highlight the Texans in terms of their role in the American presidency. Then you can move from the LBJ, Great Society, Civil Rights Movement, and you go on to Nixon, Ford, Jimmy Carter, and then you come to more recent times. You have Reagan and Bush, and then you have to Clinton, and then after Clinton, of course, you have another Bush, and then you have Obama. But that is how most presidential scholars can go back and look at, of course, Jefferson, and they can talk Andrew Jackson, and many other people who are prominent in their own domain. But what makes the Obama phenomenon interesting is because, in my opinion, Obama has connected 7 dots, which historically were not connected by any of the American presidents. And I'm going to give you 2 footnotes, metaphors, analogies, and examples that you are going to see support of these hypotheses. For the first time from George Washington to Obama, Muslim was not in any of those narratives. When Obama came, Obama became the first American president to have a Muslim name, not a nickname, but a name from his own father. The first American president who has a Muslim nickname was Teddy Roosevelt. I was saying this long before Obama came on the scene. When I was giving lectures around the country, since my research into the history of Muslims in this country, I tried to find out Islam and the American experience. Of course, I wrote a bibliographic essay on the same subject in 1980, 81. That was long before Bill Clinton and Obama came to power. Reagan was in office, and Reagan became the first American president to bring the Muslims into the narrative when he went to Reykjavik. Some of his speech writers introduced Islam in the narrative when he met Gorbachev before the collapse of the Soviet Union. You can go back to YouTube and find the evidence to support what I'm telling you right now. Reagan said, I am coming from a land where there are churches, synagogues, and mosques. Reagan made that narrative. And that's history of the United States, but not in an inaugural speech. He was speaking in a backhanded way to Gorbachev to illustrate the religious diversity of American society. Obama is the fellow who will come to the office and carrying a Muslim name. And what is very interesting about Obama is the fact that, and I've said this to many Muslims, I gave lectures, I gave the Al-Ghazali lecture out there in Chicago, and that's a university or college established by a well-known American theologian, Ranhai Niebuhr. I gave the lecture over there, and I remember when I gave the lecture, I was telling the Americans during the time of the election when McCain was running against Obama as the Republican candidate. I made it categorically clear to events, to the people there at that time, if you really look at the Obama phenomenon, I'm not sure whether he's going to win. This guy from Chicago, I'm not sure. But nobody is going to deny the fact that he has a Muslim name. And when you bring the Teddy Roosevelt narrative, you see that Teddy Roosevelt, and I told him that day, Teddy Roosevelt was the fellow who has a Muslim nickname, because when he was the chief of police in New York City, the Jews and the Arabs were cousins. They were not fighting each other. There was no Israel at that time. So the Jewish peddlers and Arab peddlers, mainly Lebanese Syrians, I don't know whether they were Palestinian, they would call themselves at that time. There was no Palestine at that time. They were basically Levantines who were traders as peddlers in New York City on Canal Street. When Teddy Roosevelt was the chief of police, they found a nickname for him. They gave him a celebrated Muslim name, Harun Rashid Roosevelt. So he became the first American president to have that Muslim nickname before he became president of the United States. And what is very interesting to me with regard to Obama and how Obama is very much linked to this connection, I don't know who is making the video. I think God may be making the video himself. Because when Teddy Roosevelt went on safari to Kenya, it never dawned on him that one day Obama's grandfather, who was a contemporary at that time, would be the grandfather of a black president of the United States. Neither Teddy Roosevelt nor Obama's grandfather or any of the contemporaries, even Hollywood, could not have thought about that. But it's history today. So Obama was able to enter and connect the dots to the point that he will be elected. So when he was elected, see what he has done. When Obama ran, he was able to do something very interesting. A man from the Midwest, next door state to Illinois, was Harry Truman. Harry Truman is the only American president whose middle name people don't mention is muted. Harry S. Truman. So when Obama was about to be inaugurated, I was telling many people, he is going to be giving the Harry Truman reception. People are not going to mention his Muslim name. If you go back and look at YouTube, you do see the senator from California who was the MC of the day, Barack Obama, Barack Obama, not Barack Hussein Obama. Go back to your YouTube and you see how Obama is connecting the dots. When Obama was going to be presented by the Chief Justice, Barack Hussein Obama, he posed the Hussein loudmouth in memory of his own father. Teddy Roosevelt didn't anticipate this. His own grandfather didn't anticipate it. Most of the most creative Hollywood people never thought about it. This way, Obama was able to say something that Harry Truman in his day didn't want people to remember. Harry Ship Truman, S-H-I-P-P-E, which was the not widely known until some of the scholars did the investigation, and he himself revealed this. Harry Truman himself, in an oral interview, revealed it. Many of the leading American historians of Truman, they now, in the index, will tell you Ship, S-H-I-P-P-E. Obama outwitted history by making sure that his father's name is going to be remembered. Barack Hussein Obama. That's one of the reasons why, when you look at Obama, in this chain of presidents, from George Washington to him as 44th president, when he was at the inauguration, Obama was able to do something very interesting. The Islamic and the Muslim narrative became part of American history. If the Muslims were in the footnotes of American history, for the first time they became part of the main text of American history, not only biographically, but politically and historically. So that is why the Muslim groups were very excited. All the Muslims were jumping up and down when he said Barack Hussein Obama. That is something which is very interesting in terms of his development. Now when you look at Obama again, in terms of collecting the dots, before I go into more detail really as to how he became successful, is that Obama was able to create this new alliance, which was really an understanding of American sociology, American psychology, and American cultural transformation, because American society, since the civil rights movement and the feminist movement and a number of other developing things in the country, was able to have these new groups of people to come together. All of a sudden, the African American community was now reorganized in a new way, because Obama was very much involved in community activities in Chicago and was very much linked to many different groups. So as a result, he was able to bring together a number of people who normally don't see eye to eye, were not only willing to coexist. In a way, he was the glue to the unconnected. So the Obama glue connected some of these elements to the point that in Chicago, you have the Christian churches. That was why he ran into trouble with his black Christian group, Reverend Wright, Jeremiah Wright. You see, he brought a group who normally may be ideologically different from some of the other groups, but Obama was also attractive to even the likes of Farrakhan and other groups who are light years away from Reverend Wright with regard to theological groundings. And Obama was able to get many of these secularly oriented groups who were secular. So to bring these groups undotted and connected was a major achievement. Now people were not sure. They were not sure whether he was going to really get all these people to the camp and get them together to vote for him. There were doubts about it, but in the end, when he defeated Hillary Clinton, then it became more and more evident that this new alliance Obama was bringing about was asking for believers. And I think many of those people who were working for them, even if they were skeptics, the road to Damascus was clear to many of them. So if they were Pauls, known as Saul, they became Paul. And this became a very interesting narrative in terms of the Obama situation. How was this? Because Obama was able to bring to the front, which Republicans and Democrats were not willing to address. That is the gay question. Because the gay intellectuals were able to create a new narrative in America by creating a new alliance. If during the civil rights movement, if Philip Randolph organizing the labor groups, then you have James Foreman and Bayard Rustin, who was very much a gay leader, not recognized. But what Obama was able to do was to people who united to create King, and many people don't appreciate that, people like James Baldwin and others, what Obama was able to pull them quietly to give them the microphone. So all of a sudden, the gays, the lesbians, the bisexuals, and all the other groups who were not organized but organized, they all jumped into his camp. So when they voted, the gay South, not widely talked about, the gay South came into being, and they supported him. Many people who are in the South, who were very not forthcoming about the issue, were shocked when Obama began to win in the South, because not only blacks, the Latinos, who saw Obama just like a non-Latino speaker, Latino, but he was able to mobilize them. He has the look, and that was attractive. And this is one of the other things that Obama was able to do. He was able to get a large number of groups who came from South Asia. He likes like them, he looks like them, you see, because he's not black the way they understand blacks who are African Americans or Africans, but he is like them in terms of complexion. So when Obama was coming, that post-racial Obama profile was beginning to gain coherency and attractiveness. So what is very interesting, the Reagan narrative also helped him. Black Americans and white Americans always used to see blacks and white Americans. When Reagan came, he created the Latino narrative. So he was from California. So you have the Latino groups who become the Hispanic phenomena. And when Reagan opened up the door with the immigration, the Latinos were now very much separate and distinct group from the whites and the blacks. There are blacks who are Latino looking, there are Latinos who are white looking, but you have this new category. What Obama was able to do is to get this new category organized in such a way that they will be working with whites who are labor supporters, whites who are from the gay groups, whites from the Jewish community, and that is another point that has to be taken into account with regard to what Obama was able to do. Obama was able to connect these dots. He got the labor groups, he got the gay groups, he was able to get many of the African American groups came to support him. And because there were some doubts about whether he could outperform Hillary Clinton or not. To the best of my knowledge, many of the black intellectuals I know and others were rallying for Hillary. But when Obama won in the Midwest, Iowa, then you had the confrontation in New Hampshire, and then South Carolina. Obama bandwagon began to really attract a lot of people. So you can see Obama getting the labor groups, the women who were split among the African Americans. Many of them now begin to see Obama attractive. And of course, Bill Clinton's statement about Obama, using the metaphor of a fairy tale, did not go very well with many blacks and many people who are not white Americans. Even some white Americans didn't like that scenario. And that also facilitated Obama to move on. So Obama was able to connect these 7 dots. You have the labor groups, you have the re-galvanized African American community, you have Obama getting the support of the Latinos, Obama was able to get the gay groups of different dimensions, Obama was able to organize the Muslims in a way they were never organized to support. Many Muslims were interested in Hillary Clinton, but when Hillary Clinton had some problem with some Muslims like Abdullah Rahman al-Amudi and all the other people, because of what happened when she was running for Senate in New York, the Muslim groups, when they hear this candidate with a Muslim name, it became very attractive. I remember I gave a lecture in Chicago. One of these Shiite Muslim American told me, well, his name is Hussein, I'm going to vote for him because he carried this powerful Muslim name, Hussein, the grandchild of the Prophet. So I think that created some kind of hope for them, that if he's in the White House, he's not going to be really giving us headache or giving us pain in a miserable way. Then you have to look at Obama and the manner in which Obama was able to organize these different groups. Most importantly, in my opinion, and this was the major turning point, which Hillary Clinton, if she's going to run this time, must do also. This is the millennials, the millennial groups. These young people who are very computer-like, very sophisticated in terms of computer, they were able to change the equation radically for Obama. That Obama was able to get the poor guy and the big guy to give money. So all of a sudden you have an American politician who doesn't come from a rich family like the Kennedys, doesn't come from the Bush family, doesn't come from the family of the Romneys. He was able to run as a low-key African-American candidate who was able now to connect with some of these well-to-do Americans who are sympathetic to him, either because he's a Democrat or because they like some of the things he was talking about. But he was able to get support from the millennials. And the millennials are very powerful young people. They are very computer savvy and they are able to raise money through the internet. And that really took Obama to the highest level of performance. And this is now recorded in history. So when you see Obama connecting these 7 dots together, you can see how anyone who is going to come back to the White House must deal with these 7 dots. if they miss one of these 7 dots, it may be catastrophic for them, because Obama, Bill Clinton, and Bush have done something unprecedented in the history of this country. Since the time of Truman, and you can go beyond Truman, because FDR was the first American president to have 4 terms. He didn't finish his 4th term, he died in office. And Harry Truman took over that term and got elected 1 time. And then he himself, when Korea was a dangerous territory to tread, for him to have a 7th term, he resigned. And that's why he was not very happy himself, because of legacy. He tried to discourage LBJ not to refuse to run, because he knew that if LBJ didn't run, he will be another Harry Truman in terms of the succession to the presidency. And that's what happened in history. You see, he died himself in 1972. And that story of the presidency from George Washington and all these intermediaries to Obama, we see how Obama has succeeded in running. When the first time they thought it was a nightmare. When he had 2 terms, he was telling George Bush, you had 2 terms, I have 2 terms too. Clinton, who inspired George Bush second, who was able to do what his father couldn't do. George Bush was able to do what his father didn't do, because Bill Clinton gave him a 1 term. Just like Jimmy Carter was given 1 term by Reagan, who has 2 terms. And if you go backward in terms of the history of the United States, the only other American presidents who had 2 terms, you see, George Washington 2 terms, and he left a very powerful legacy. 8 years, farewell address, bye-bye, I'm gone. And then, of course, Adam tried, the first American family to try to get the presidency. Twice he failed, and he became a new legacy. So when you talk about more recent president, you talk about Jimmy Carter was just another Adams, who was preempted by Reagan, just like Adams was preempted by Jefferson. Jefferson came 2 terms, and then his successor, Madison, and then you can see Monroe. And this gave Virginia a very interesting position in terms of the presidency of the United States. Virginia became the only state for a long time to have some kind of monopoly of the presidency. Of course, the presidency will, like the famous Hegelian universal spirit, move from one location to the other. So the thing is, when you look at Obama in terms of world history and the history of the presidency, many American students of the presidency are going to have a field day, because they are going to get all the available evidence to see how and why this man was able to be unprecedented, being the 44th president, was able to do something that Jefferson did and his mentor, George Washington, did, and you have this long line of succession. Kennedy would have liked to serve his 4th term. Unfortunately, assassination put an end to that. And unfortunately, the Kennedys were not able to do what the Bushes have done. And if you are a student of the presidency, you know the Adams, and then the Harrison. The Harrison became another family where you have in 1840, and then when you come towards the end of the 19th century, you have another Harrison. You have in a family where the father of a president was the son of a president in American history. And this is all part of the narrative students who are looking at Obama are going to bring to this office. That if you look at biographies, family names, particularly at this time when people are talking about dynasties, that American republicanism has evolved to a point where now we have the Bush family and the Clinton family, 2 families that are now beginning to emerge in American society, where anything like this never happened before. Because since the Adams and the Harrisons, Americans were forced to come to that kind of narrative during Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt, of course, didn't succeed. Just like Grant wanted to have a second term. But FDR did it. But after FDR, the Republicans say, hell no, we're not going to have this again. But again, what is very interesting, both the Republicans and the Republicans in American society today after Obama are coming to a point where they are beginning to say dynastic politics under Republicanism is permissible. If the Clintons or the Bush get it, then the Bushes will have a third president in the history of the Republic. That will be a revolution. And that will be definitely, unintendedly, the legacy of the Obama narrative. And I can end it this way for other historians to take the baton and start running with the ball. My brother, you're going to blow the way. You're going to make